evening and welcome to another exciting show with Shannon in America, John Hamer somewhere in Great Britain, hello, and me in Fockham Hall, the world's smallest country. Well, tonight, guess what we're going to talk about? Now, hang on, I'm looking for my script. Now, we've got to ask the vital question. Would Sir John Gielgud, I think, the world's worst actor, have done a better job than Neil Armstrong or Louis Armstrong, for that matter? Now, those historic words from John Gielgud would have been, "The eagle has landed, dear boy." You know, that would have been better, wouldn't it, than Neil Armstrong? But the big question is, why didn't the astronauts have lead in their boots to stop them jumping higher than the Harlem Globetrotters with each stride? Now, that's the problem with real science. It tends to get in the way of one heck of a humdinger of a hoax. So, over to you, John.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Shannon. It's great to be here again. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is just a continuation of last week's show. You know, we're just going to kind of elaborate on a few more interesting bits of info that kind of back up what we were saying last week. So, you know, I'd like to open up by saying, you know, asking the question really, you know, as to why people cling so tenaciously and often even angrily to what is essentially the adult version of Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy. I mean, I think what primarily motivates them actually is fear. And it's not the lie itself that scares people, it's what that lie says about the world around us and how it really functions. If NASA was able to pull off such an outrageous hoax on the entire world, as indeed they have, and then keep keep that lie in place for over 50 years, what does that say to the uninitiated about the control of the information that we receive? What does that say about the media and the scientific community and the educational community and all the other institutions we depend on to tell us the truth? You know, in fact, what does it say about the very nature of the world that we live in? This is what scares the holy bejesus out of people and prevents them from even considering the possibility that they could have been so thoroughly duped. It's not really the being lied to about the moon landings that people have a problem with. It's the realization that comes with that revelation. If they could lie about that, they could be lying about anything or indeed everything. And to be honest, if you use that approach, you wouldn't be too far wrong. Mark Twain once said, famously, "It's far easier to fool people than convince them they've been fooled." And that is such a true statement. I mean, had the first transatlantic flight in 1919 not been followed up for the next 50 plus years, would there not have been questions asked? And would people not have found it strange or unusual, to say the very least? If, say, in the 1920s, that someone designed a jet airliner capable of speeds of 600 miles an hour or more, and then after a short time that technology disappeared and could not be recreated, would that not seem to be at odds with commonly accepted logic or reality? Well, I submit that it most certainly would, and yet this is exactly the case we have with the so-called moon landings of 1969 to 72. But why the huge deception, though? I mean, this is the obvious question. Anybody who actually comes across this information for the first time, that has to be the question that's uppermost in their minds. Why the deception? What's it all about? Why would they even bother lying to us about it? Right, well, partly, and again, this is connected intrinsically with my entire worldview, and that it's a threefold attack upon reality, actually. It's part of the globe Earth, Big Bang, evolution, three-way deception that conveys the impression that we're nothing, just a random cosmic accident, and not the powerful, divine, spiritual beings we really are. It's purely by depriving us of this knowledge that they're able to exert huge control over us. Now, I am now going to come on to speak about gravity, but I don't know if it's a bit early, Chris, but if you want to go to chat, because I can see there's quite a bit building up there, and I think we need to keep up with it, don't we?
And it's very interesting what you were saying. I mean, we're going to chat, but I call it the King's New Clothes syndrome, because scientists go along with the hoax for two reasons. They don't want to be ridiculed if they step out of line, and they need their funding. And people, as you said with Mark Twain, it's far easier to fool people than to tell people they've been fooled. People find it easier to go along with the rest. And you notice there's always set statements. You're put into a category if you disagree. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a nutter. And then we're going to mental illness. We must be mentally ill not to believe that. All this type of thing. But what you said about the transatlantic flight, Alcock and Brown 1919, if they hadn't tried it again for 50 years, people have been starting asking questions. But let's have a look at chat. It's really over brimming tonight. So I apologise if I don't mention everybody's everyone's message. So we've got here Angela Davis. Oh dear, I've really heard it. Yes, she was on at 7:30. Very good, gold star. What do you think? Do you think that no lines this week? Very good. That is.
I hope you remember to come back though, Angela.
Then Louise Wilcox. Good evening, everyone. Getting settled for another educational evening. Oh, isn't that nice? Thanks.
Hi, Louise.
Well, from John and Shannon. And then we've got Moria Cade. Good evening. And then we've got someone that's obsessive about shirts. Janet Godfrey, nice shirt. Well,
thank you, Jan.
Well, thank you, Janet. I actually had this deloused and I gave it its 6-yearly wash last week. So it should be better this week. Oh, what's that hopping off of it? Right.
I think my shirt's the best.
Oh, you're in a spacesuit. You're all right. Now it says Kevin Keener. You all right, guys? Then we got Julian Morgan. Good evening, gentlemen, and looking forward to tonight's show. Like the shirt, John. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Julian. Thank you.
Yes, John and his famous shirt. Who was that comic thing? Was it? And his famous trousers. Ralph Winter. Evening, folks.
Hi, Ralph.
Kevin Keener. Didn't know Shannon was here. Hi, Shannon. Yes, she is. We've got Phil Howard.
Hi, Kevin.
And then we've got Ralph Winter. He's just repeated what. Well, he said this before yourself. Why haven't we been back to the moon since 1972? Good question. And it says spot on, John, when you mentioned it. Then we've got Charlotte Woodhead. Hiya, John. Managed to log on after a massive faff on via Google data mining. Log on.
Very good, Charlotte. Yeah.
We've got Phil Howard. In fairness, the US fake moon landing was a lot more convincing than the recent China moon landing. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I say, it's the finest sci-fi film we could ever watch to see. I mean, you've got to give him credit. It really was a good sci-fi film. I am reading a book on gravity and finding it hard to put down.
Well, you may be able to contradict me then, Julian, because I'm not an expert, but I do know little bits about it. That's what we're going to talk about immediately after this little session. Yeah.
Herbalist specialist says, if the landings on the moon were accessible to man, wouldn't you think other countries would have landed since? You've got a good point there. Since the legendary landing by USA, Russia, China. I think was it Russia said they put a dustbin on the moon or something. That thing with a lunacod or whatever. Kevin Keener, all about money and greed. Yes, and we've got too keen. Yes, right. Oh, you're very keen. That's what we like to see. We've got a few more. We've got about half a dozen more. Okay, John. And I was going to mention actually something that Ken mentioned about the rockets going up. It's Ken from Kent. Hello, Ken. Hello, Chris. This is Robert Dean. Hello, Chris, John, and Shannon.
Hi,
all
Rob.
the way from Northern California. Lovely to hear you all. This is great. Oh, isn't that nice?
Thanks, Rob.
Louise Wilcox, the sheep are taught to fear the wolf, but it is the shepherd that leads them to their slaughter.
That's very profound, Louise. Wow.
Yeah. Angela Davis. Good evening, Eric and John. It's good to see you both. Love the show. What about poor old Shannon?
Can't see her.
Ralph Winter. Hello, Robert. Then we've got here Julian Morgan. Tonight's show should have plenty of atmosphere, so looking forward. And then we've got...
Don't give me your day job just yet, Julian.
Sorry, unaware Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Lose a gold star for that one. And then we said, this is the last one, Kevin. They won't go back to the moon because of the soup dragon.
Just for Shannon's benefit there, Chris. Just what that's referring to. There was a kids' TV program in the 70s, I think it was, called The Clangers, and it was about these little creatures that lived on the moon, and they were made out of knitted socks.
I remember that.
And they had this pal called the soup dragon, which lived on soup apparently. And that's what the reference was at.
Can I pop a question in before we go any further?
Yeah.
I have two researchers, Ron from Darwin and Ken from Kent. And Ken is watching live, I think. Evening, Ken. I think Ron might be watching live as well. And Ken said, why is it that when the rockets go up, they seem to go into slow motion? Which is an interesting point. So
go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, I mean, my speculation is just the same reason that when we see airplanes take off, they seem faster than when they reach the, cruising altitude or what have you. And I don't know, it's some kind of, it's really odd, actually. Sometimes I see planes when I'm driving on the highway that are still kind of low, commercial airliners. And sometimes it looks like they're not moving at all. So if that's, I don't know if that's a tell or anything like that. Maybe that would be how it would look. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I don't think it's as sinister as you might imagine, personally. But yeah, I could be wrong. There could be all sorts of stuff wrong with it. I don't know. But
yeah,
I was actually present at a shuttle launch, as we discussed before we went on air, in 1993, and I didn't notice that at all. But you kind of just get used to the same sights, don't you? Even though I was actually there, I wasn't that close. But I mean, I was near enough to see it in reasonable detail. But I didn't really notice it kind of slowing down, to be honest. I don't know. I can't answer it really, to be honest.
It is interesting because he said, when you see a rocket going up, say an amateur rocket, it just goes straight up.
Yeah.
And he said, with this, and I was on the phone this afternoon, and he said, and also my point is the rocket. You see any rockets or hot air balloon, it goes straight up. Whereas those rockets go up and then sideways.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about this last week, didn't we? The fact that they kind of go up and then horizontal, which is a really weird thing. And that was the same when I was actually at that.
I think it might just be that. I don't know either. Well, it might be. I was going to talk about Mad Mike, but I could do that later. But the rockets, I think his rockets did the same thing. They shoot up, but then they kind of go to the side. I think they lose momentum. I don't really understand that because it's like the blast has a certain kind of power, but then you lose that momentum, perhaps. And I guess that's all questions for somebody who understands the physics of atmosphere and and all that, but and altitude and whatnot. But I'm definitely not that scientist here. I can't say anything about it.
No. Okay. Shall we move on again, or do you want to stay in chat for a while? Or shall we
we've got a couple coming in on chat.
Here,
after the soup dragon, Julian Morgan said, "Don't get me started on so-called UFOs, as these were just a smokescreen." I agree with you there,
absolutely, Julian.
To make us believe that outer space does exist. Load of old codswallop. Yes, I agree with you. I used to be very interested in it, but And this is Charlotte Woodhead has said, it's actually Pete.
Oh, Pete, sorry, mate. Yeah, I know Pete. He's a friend of mine, actually. He's signed on with his partner's name, that's all. So I didn't recognise Charlotte's surname at all, Pete. I do apologise, my friend.
So
Hi, Anita.
Charlotte's actually Pete. So this is Pete we're talking to, is it?
It's
With Charlotte.
Pete, yeah.
Glad to finally catch the show live anyway. Moon landings, yay. Right, and then we got, so herbalist specialists, in my opinion, the likes of the moon landing and the current chat regarding accessibility to Mars, or as I call it, Devon Island, are to con people that man is greater than God. Man can beat God to become God. Interesting. And then we've got, who are we? Charlotte? Well, she's Pete. The moon landings equal, I couldn't agree more, Hollywood movie to convince the world of a colossal lie. The moon is really a glowing ball of radioactive cheese. This goes back to what I was saying last week. You must have seen the Great British Eccentric.
Sorry to talk over, Chris. I'm just saying to Pete,
sorry, I'm talking over you.
That actually is a great theory, and I think it's more plausible than the NASA one, to be honest. I mean, I really do mean that.
Please go on to, it was made in 1971, I think. Please go on to YouTube and see the comedian Dave Allen, and he was serious on this, In Search of the Great British Eccentric, and he talks to a scientist who believed that the moon was actually gas, and the rockets didn't go there, and they landed in the Himalayas. And people are going, "Ooh," at that time. He didn't know. Dave Allen was quite serious. Right, it's worth watching. Rockets are just giant fireworks without the sparkle. That's Louise.
Yeah.
Pimlico Fox. Hello, Pimlico Fox. Could all the footage be fake, purely the theatre for TV, etc., and keep it secret from other countries? And why astronauts were sometimes so uncomfortable afterwards?
Well, yeah, obviously the footage is all fake because there's no way on it. I was going to say there's no way on Earth again. There's no way they could possibly have gone to the moon at all in any way. So no, they didn't actually go though. I'm afraid. In my view, I mean, obviously, I've found plenty of evidence to say that as well, which we obviously can't cover in a session like this.
Can I just chime in real quick on that? Can I say something? Yeah, I mean, I think I know what Pimlico Fox is trying to say. Maybe they always hide technologies from us. There's ancient technologies we've lost and been hidden. I mean, if there was a moon that we could get to, maybe it's closer or whatnot. I sometimes wonder on these kind of psyops, like perhaps they're trying to show us something that we could say, oh, that's fake, and then we could all, eventually be like, oh, that's ridiculous. And then meanwhile, they're going there, or they're setting up a base, and maybe there's surveillance from it. Or if you think about the Truman Show and how the moon was the place where they, monitored everything from, and there's all this kind of levels of things. Who knows? Maybe there is maybe that everything's so different from what we're told and what we know, that who knows what really happened is happening. But for sure, what we're presented with is not correct. That's all we do know, I think.
Yeah. Anyway. Just looking at the bottom of chat there, Shannon, you've just got a yes, thanks from Pimlico. Yeah.
Shannon, that's what I mean.
Right. Okay.
And
sorry, mate.
We got here, what is it? Julian Morgan says, I think Area 51, that's a bloody hoax, excuse my language, was just a hoax to give the impression there are things where to hide and create fear. Yeah. You probably go, there's nothing there. The greatest film, this is Phil Howard, Stanley Kubrick ever created was the fake moon landings.
Correct.
And with Kevin Keener says, we are living in a Hollywood movie day in, day out. I watched it, Chris. Dave Allen, that's right. And we got Pete saying, which is Charlotte Woodward. I remember Dave Allen and his missing finger. Excellent comedian, unlike the present comedians. And we've got another two. We just got Werner von Braun described a rocket almost the size of the Empire State Building in order to escape Earth's gravity.
That's absolutely true, Rob. Yeah, well said.
Louise says, Button Moon TV show is more believable than the NASA version and far more enjoyable. So over to
Yeah.
you. I think we go back into chat a little bit later, shall we?
Yeah. I mean, I'm conscious at times, Max. We're already 20 minutes in, and I've only spoken for about a minute, so there's a lot to cover, really. So I know it's difficult because we're trying to keep up with chat when there's so many people in there. Okay, but I wanted to begin with gravity, and Shannon is going to interject here, I'm sure, and feel free to do so, Shannon, wherever. Okay, but I think just to briefly reiterate what I said last week, or what we said last week in part one, the ridiculous hoppity skipping movement of the astronauts on all the videos is simply normal jumping and skipping played at half speed. I've seen this footage speeded up by 2 times, and at that speed it doesn't look any different to what it would on Earth in a so-called normal gravity condition. I mean, this is the only way that they could actually think of with the existing technology at the time to show movements in allegedly 1/6 gravity of Earth. So to me it begs the question as to why they didn't just walk normally. I mean, the whole thing is just pathetic as far as I'm concerned. Instead of jump, why did they have to jump everywhere they went? It's just so stupid. But I think it was because it was an attempt to cover up, an attempt to show what it was really like on the moon, even though they were actually on Earth. But anyway, I believe gravity is just another hoax among millions of others, and was thought up by Isaac Newton and his pals in the Royal Society in the 18th century to prop up their globe Earth nonsense. It's significant to me that without gravity, the entire accepted model of Earth and the universe and everything else out there, allegedly in outer space, just totally falls apart. In reality, there is no such force as gravity. It is gravity that allegedly keeps the whole universe stable, not just here on Earth, but right through the alleged cosmos. It keeps the stars and the galaxies in place, as well as all the solar systems, planets, and moons, if you believe all that claptrap, of course. But really, as I say, it's just a convenient fix for an otherwise insurmountable problem about how the entirety of outer space hangs together. It's also a fundamental facet of that great fraud, Albert Einstein's famous E=mc² equation, which has long been proven to be false, but of course they don't tell us that. So, if gravity is a myth, what actually does hold everything in place, and why do things fall downwards if left to their own devices? Well, surprisingly, or maybe not, Occam's razor, that phrase, tells us that the simplest solution is often the answer to any question. So the real answer to gravity is that it's all to do with density and atmospheric pressure. For example, a lead weight is massively more dense than air, and so falls to the floor immediately, whereas a feather is marginally more dense than air, and so gently floats to the ground in the absence of wind. And in contrast, a balloon filled with hydrogen or helium is less dense than air, and so it floats. Simple. If gravity, as they claim, is really force strong enough to prevent the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere from flying off the surface of this ball that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour allegedly, then surely it's totally impossible for gravity to be simultaneously too weak to prevent small birds, insects, and children's balloons becoming airborne and traveling freely in any direction. In my view, physicists can't have that both ways. And if gravity is strong enough to curve the massive expanse of the oceans around their globular Earth, it would be totally impossible for fish, humans, and any other creatures to swim through such forcefully held water. I just marvel at the magical powers that the globe Earth has ascribed to gravity, which makes everything possible in their little fantasy universe. Could you put up picture 1, Chris, at this point, please?
Certainly. One moment, please.
Right. So this, to me, is why the lie. This explains why the lie. I won't read it out. I'll let everyone read that and maybe pause it if you need to. But yeah, it's gone. That to me just sums it all up neatly. that's kind of a flat earther kind of viewpoint. I do appreciate that, and I'm sure there are people out there who think that flat earth is a load of nonsense. But if that's the case, I would highly encourage you to look into it a lot more deeply. Seriously. And you know, I give a really extensive summation of why I believe the earth is flat and not a globe in the Falsification of Science, for those interested. Okay, so I think at this point I'd like to bring in Shannon if she's ready, and she's got several things to discuss. So away you go, Shani.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. Yeah. So the first thing that kind of struck me about the story of how gravity was discovered. So I'm really fascinated by stories. I think that the elite, the controllers of this world, know that, you know, humans are naturally storytellers, and so we not to use this as a pun, but we gravitate towards stories, and you know, mythology, symbols. I mean, the Bible, all these stories are so it really gets, you know, grained in our psyches, and they're very important. So anytime there's something a lie they want to bring forward for whatever reason, and I think John explained it really well what the reason was, because, you know, the first you bring in Copernicus, and he has the story about the Earth's not really flat, and, you know, and then it takes a long time for this idea to take hold, and then they need to explain, oh, these questions come up. Well, then if it's round and it's spinning, then why aren't we all falling off of it? And so then comes, you know, here comes Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, you know, and the story, we have this lovely little story about him sitting under an apple tree and the apple falling, and he gets this great idea. And, you know, I mean, I'm very skeptical that happened. What I think is, though, that they used the apple tree specifically to tie into this story in the Bible, the original fall of man from the garden, from paradise. You know, Eve partook of the apple, and then so did Adam, and so in doing so, they lost favor with God and they left paradise. And I think with us, as people buying into these stories and actually, in a sense, partaking of the apple again, you know, it's almost taunting us. Like, we take up the apple, we believe this story that they're feeding us, and therefore, you know, we fall from paradise, because we could have paradise on earth if we weren't being controlled by these stories and these lies. You know, if we all woke up, we really could return to the garden. We could, you know, it could really be a paradise here. And there's only one reason it isn't, and it's those in charge who are controlling everything. And so again, it's like apple allegory.
Yeah, that's
symbol. I mean, why was that chosen as why is that chosen as a brand for a popular computer, personal computer, and that is the symbol? You know, again, they're mocking us in a way. They're saying we are eating of the apple, and we're falling into the trap, and we're stuck in this story. And so they're controlling. You know, it's always whoever controls the narrative is controlling us, and this is what's happening. And this is why they're telling us lies all the time. It's not just the moon landings, of course. It's all kinds of things. And, you know, the bigger the lie, well, we talked about the bigger the lie. What I want to say is actually the more, all you have to do is repeat the lie for it to be accepted. And it's almost the familiarity of it. I mean, even myself, I find myself in discussing and looking at the moon photos. Even just saying that they're moon photos, there's some part of my my mind that, good one. Some part of my mind accepts that they're on the moon, you know, because all my life I've seen these photos. They've said it's the moon. We land on the moon, and it's the moon. Here's the moon, and this is what they're doing to us this whole last year. I mean, you can normalize anything, as we've just seen. Anything can become normal, and therefore familiar, and therefore accepted. And so it's really about that. That's all that really matters. I mean, is that it's familiar. We're afraid of the unknown. We feel uncomfortable being out there without, like, you know, they're giving us these stories to make us feel certain about things, instead of letting us do the natural thing to observe and question on our own, and discover the world that way. So,
yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
The stories, you know, the stories are important. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, actually, I'd
So,
like to thank. I mean, you've just explained, and Shannon's just explained perfectly, and it's really fitting together. To me, it's like a sort of a jigsaw puzzle where we've got all the pieces and we're trying to form a picture, and you've just fitted a few pieces in because I was, be straight with you. With flat Earth, I'm on the fence with that. And the reason why is because I make sundials and the geometry works out perfectly. But what you said about gravity and density makes sense. So you've moved me, shall we say, 70% towards flat Earth. So I've moved slightly off the fence there, and I am moving towards it because it does make sense. And what Shannon was saying, summing up, it's really like science is a religion, and these are like shall we say, the priests of the world, telling us what things are, what you should believe, and that's what it's all really about, isn't it?
Yeah. And we're always giving our authority away to something external, and that's what we've been taught since we've been born. So deny your own senses, deny your own experience. The experts will tell you what to think and believe. I mean, you see this all the time in the news, especially these days. I've actually seen news headlines, articles that actually say only trust the experts. Don't try to, without saying don't try to think for yourselves. That's what they're saying. Like, don't question this yourself. Don't do your own research, was one of them advised. Let the experts tell you what to do. Let the experts tell you what to think. Like, you can never be an expert. You're just a small, insignificant little thing. Like, you don't have these degrees. You're nothing. You can't even. So obviously deny anything that you've experienced. And I also feel like it's not so much about flat Earth versus globe Earth. I think it's just that the globe model definitely doesn't fit. I mean, it doesn't make sense to especially from our own observations. But what is this reality? What is this Earth? We don't really know. And that's the interesting point to me. I don't feel I need to say, okay, I think this other model is the truth either, because I don't really know that. I mean, how can I know for sure? I know what I see around me. That's all I know. I don't know. I don't have this perspective from so-called space. I can't see that. So I don't know really, but does it matter? Do we have to know, what, like somebody, I think there's a comment in the, actually in the comment section here, somebody said something about the Earth. It's actually what we make it. The world can be, this experience can be what we make it, because it's energy, right? And so there's this kind of, a lot of it's about perception, and then who controls that perception? So I mean, this is a really interesting topic, but
it is. One thing you touched on there, Shani, or was it you, Chris? I can't remember. About proving that the Earth is flat or a globe. I know we're getting slightly off the topic here. I don't really want to go here, but I'll just say this. About proving whether the Earth is a globe or flat or a flat disc. The one way that you can prove it without going up, up by rocket, is by sailing to the Antarctic. Because anyone who doesn't know what the flat Earth model is, it is a disc which is surrounded by Antarctica, which consists of a 150 foot to 200 foot ice wall, which keeps in the oceans. And then it's covered in a dome. Well, that's irrelevant for what I'm going to be talking about. So sail down to the Antarctic, paint a whacking grey, or stick something on the ice wall, a big red X or whatever, and then in your ship, start sailing either eastwards or westwards. It doesn't matter which. And if you travel 68,000 miles before you get back to that red X on the ice wall, then you know that the Earth is flat, because you'll have gone around the entire circumference of the disk. If you only travel 15,000 miles, and when you get back to the red X, then you know that the Earth is a globe, because you've just traversed around the entire continent of Antarctica. But the big flaw with that is that they won't allow you to do it. You're not allowed anywhere near Antarctica. I know that cruise ships stop there, but these are special. They get special permission to do that, and nobody's allowed to move inland. There is a souvenir shop on one little bit of Antarctica where you can buy postcards and send it back to your friends, saying, "Oh, look at me, I've been to Antarctica." But that's the only thing that they allow. There's something called the Antarctic Treaty, which means that you're not allowed to either fly over it or sail to it without permission, and they don't give that permission very often. And the reason being is that there is something that they don't want us to know about Antarctica. You know, the planes have been threatened.
Right, like this.
Yeah, go on, Shani.
Yeah, I mean, where else but space? You know, are there international treaties like that? And why is there an international treaty? Just to protect the ice. You know, the important ice. I mean, come on, give me a break. There's a lot of other more interesting places to explore in terms of natural ecosystems than a whole bunch of ice. I have a friend actually who went down there. He stayed. He was a carpenter. He is a carpenter, and he actually got an assignment. You know, he was able to go and stay at the base in Antarctica for 6 months, but he got kicked out early, or in serious trouble anyway. I don't remember if they kicked him out or they more closely monitored him, but he's an ice climber and he wanted to go climb some ice, and he just went climbing, and that was a really big problem, really big. You can't just go off exploring on your own. No way. You know, I mean, most people down there, they stay in these horrible bunkers, you know, this horrible housing they're just inside all the time. They don't go anywhere. But my question, see, I know the flat Earth model has the ice wall as the barrier, the boundary. It does seem like there's some kind of boundary, but what's on the other side of that? We don't know. We're not allowed to go, and they don't show us, you know, like you said. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah. It could be the aliens are on the other side of the ice wall. Yeah, what's that?
He went there, didn't he, apparently? Did you know about Admiral Byrd?
Oh, right.
Yeah, Robert Byrd, yeah. He actually went there, allegedly, didn't he? And, you know, he came back and he told these stories of beyond the ice. There's like this green. I mean, he was perfectly serious when he was saying it. I mean, I'm not sure whether I actually 100% believe him or not, but it could be just a psyop of some kind. But he actually found a green and pleasant land, so to speak, beyond the ice, where people of a kind that he'd never seen before lived. And they welcomed him with open arms and blah, blah, blah. And it's a very long and convoluted story. But as I say, how much truth there actually is in that, I'm not really sure.
Yes. There's also
to escape the New World Order, we need to escape the New World Order, we just need to hop over that ice wall somehow.
Absolutely, yeah. So get that plane hired, Shannon, and we're off tomorrow.
What about the Vikings that disappeared? There was a huge, I don't know what happened to them. There was, I think it was thousands just disappeared from history. So
what's that, sorry?
There was Vikings that disappeared, and it's a mystery. Archaeologists just mystified by people that disappear. But back onto topic again. Do you want to have do you want to carry on, John? Or
sure.
Let's go to chat because that's building up massively again, and we're going to get.
It really is. I'm going to have to miss a few out. I do apologise. I really do. So please don't. Now, we got here Charlotte Woodward, who he's using her computer. The fall of man is the fall of mind into the illusion of matter. Fall of man is the fall of mind into the illusion of matter. I think that this is Julian. Sorry, I'm not putting them up, am I? Julian, I think that things like sat-navs work, and some as mobile phones, and use the network to give us directions, and certainly not satellites, as we are led to believe. That's interesting. Then we've got here, Elon Musk has just got back from asking the US government for another grant and has just thumbed down this live chat.
Hi, Elon.
Hello, Elon. Shape agnostic. Media hypnosis. That's interesting. Then we've got Jan Hagverdi. Hi.
Hi, Jan.
And then we've got here, good evening, everyone. There's Eamon. Hello, Eamon. What do you think? Lawrence Remen, he's late this week. Yes, definitely Lawrence Remen.
Yeah.
Note from parents, please. And we got what we got here, Evan. The globe Earth model does explain the seasons, so I believe it best explains observation. But I agree, you should question everything.
Yeah, there is an answer to that, Evan, on the flat Earth model. Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to contact me, I can send you information on that.
It's a good book on it as well that he's written as well. Excellent. Worth getting. Louise Wilcox, 300 elite started the whole system of lies. I agree with you there. Science, war, health, anyone in their circle is taught the same in the same elite schools. They get filtered in, then get filtered into their head of everything from government onwards. I 100% agree with you there. Yes, they are not schools; they're brainwashing establishments.
Yeah.
And it's got here, Louise, you're 100% right. That's from Kevin. Then we've got Emin again. Here we go. Emin says there could be plenty of other reasons you're not allowed to go to Antarctica. I think there could be oil reserves there, and that's why the Germans were there in World War II when they were running out.
Hang on, Emin. Just to send this one back at you. There are oil reserves in lots of places, but they don't stop you from going to them. I mean, look at Texas, California. They're absolutely full of oil everywhere. And by the way, oil is not a fossil fuel like they tell us it is. That's just a lie to create a scarcity.
It's not fossil fuel at all. I agree with you.
So why would they stop us from going to Antarctica just because there's oil there? It's just I'm not being awkward. I'm just posing the question. You might have an answer to it, and if you do, fair enough.
We're open-minded. I think this is the way it should be.
Yeah.
And now Charlotte Woodward, the science is settled. That's what they say. Hang on, you got hold of your lapel, haven't you? The science is settled. We are lying through our teeth and can't provide a reasonable explanation. So please stop asking questions because it might reveal our evil agenda. Yep, spot on there. That's Pete, isn't it?
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
A bit off topic. This is Robert Dean. But who starts wars and conflicts? Oh yes, I think we can have a year's worth of programs on that one. Ordinary men and women just trying to eke out a living in a peaceful way. Somebody wants these. Why? Big questions, demand, big answers. Psychopaths, usury, and shall we say banking families? And I said that with a B. Right. Let me just do two more. I think this is Julian. I think we send an undercover penguin with a hidden camera and mic over there to spill the beans and uncover the truth.
Now you're talking sense, Julian.
Good idea.
That's what we need. Yeah. Hang on. The reason for not letting us go to Antarctica is because it is a huge clean energy field. Maybe.
A bit tenuous there, Louise. I'm sorry.
Julian Morgan says we all have been fooled for years, and people need to wake up and smell the coffee. And these liars should be held to account and be just brought to justice. Off with their heads. I say off with them more than that. Anyway,
I'd volunteer for that, but I'll probably get killed in the rush.
Yeah.
Right, over to Shannon or yourself, John.
Well, do you want to continue, Shannon? With you got some pictures to talk about,
just
haven't
one.
you?
Oh, yeah, I do. And I wanted to say, so we were talking about flat Earth and everything, and I mentioned earlier, Mad Mike, they called him. There's a documentary, really a fun documentary called Rocket Man, and I think it was released 2019, or at least I saw it in 2019. But he was, he had been a stunt man, so he had like those skills. He was living in the desert in California, and he was building his own rockets and flying them. I think his first flight was well over 1,000 feet, but his aim was 5,000 feet, and I think he was nearing that goal, and he just needed more funding. And it really, if you watch the film, you'll see that it did seem like there was a chance he could achieve this. And he was, after the film came out, I think there was enough attention on him. He may have even gotten that. I think he got the funding. And so, of course, this was not to be a success. I mean, you can't allow an ordinary person to, go behind the curtain. And you can't, that just can't happen. I mean, the fact that he was even attempting this and got notoriety basically, signed his death warrant, right? So he had, of course, that mission was a failure, and he died. He had an accident. And he had an accident right around February 23rd, you know, just when the whole coronavirus news was breaking. It's sort of interesting timing. And I think somebody, I don't remember who, looked into it in terms of the numbers. If anybody, I don't know if anybody here is interested in, it's called gematria or gematria, Gematria, I think. But it's about it's basically similar to numerology. It's you know, that our language and everything is coded, and so with numbers, and that numbers are significant to the ruling elite, and that there are a lot of ritual killings to, you know, by the numbers, and so he was just one of them. So it seems that's a whole different topic, but my point is really that, you know, we are never going to go fly in rocket ships. They like to let us think that might happen one day, but, you know, ordinary people are never going to be going to be privy to these things. So we have to always just take them at their word for it. Get the elite to get to go in the spaceships, you know, and see all these things and go to the moon and Mars and that. But you know, it's never going to happen. So they're just not going to let that happen. Is my point. And yeah. So
okay, very good. So you've got some pictures, haven't you, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, back to, just to touch on the photography a little bit again of the moon photos. I think it's number 3, Chris, is the image I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Yes, that's the one. So this one's really fun because it's very obvious to me as a photographer that there's 2 major light sources coming from opposite directions. So to the right of the photo, the background, there's a really strong light source. It looks like it's coming from the right. And then, you know, in the foreground, we've got lighting from the left, you know, from a different side. I mean, you could maybe argue that light source from sort of the left front a little bit is spilling onto the back, but I don't think so. Not that with that lighting effect. There, to me, that indicates a strong light from the right. And also, if you look a little more carefully, you'll see the seam. This is what we get in, where we get into this idea that Kubrick was behind this, because he had this front screen projection technique that he was using at the time in his films that he had quite mastered with the Scotch light background screen. And John writes about this in Falsification of History. There's a really good bit on that, and it's called, I like the title of this, Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Oddity. For those of you who haven't seen it, seen that part of his chapter. But you'll see that, so the foreground, if you look carefully at the left side, you'll also see this line. You'll see a line where there's definitely a very odd differential between the foreground and the background. I mean, if any of those shots are revealing to me of a fake backdrop, this is the one, because it's a softer focus in the backdrop from the foreground, which can be normal, but there's no gradual change. It's not gradual at that edge. It's very sharp on the ground, and then that hill is a little bit softer, and the lighting is different on it. So this is, to me, this is the red herring. This is like the one, you know, this shot that should be focused on more than some of the other ones have been. Yeah, so that to me shows, you know, possibly Kubrick's hand, and definitely that it's faked. I mean, here again, we have this rover that supposedly fits in that thing right in front of it. Like just a great shot because of how close it is to it. You can see the size, you know, the relationship there. Along with 3 men. Yeah, 3 men and that thing that even if it folded up, I mean, why isn't there a picture of it folded up like a suitcase if that's what it does? I'd like to see that. You know, that would be really interesting to see. So yeah, that is you know, and I was just thinking about, because we got on the gravity topic, you know, the other thing was they were handing I mean, supposedly there's somebody inside handing out this film magazine back we talked about last last week for the Hasselblad. They still had to change them, but I don't know what. It sounded like it was on some kind of like pulley, some cable or something. And I've seen pictures of this supposed actual Hasselblad magazine backs that they sent to the moon. And there's nothing on it to indicate that it would attach to anything like that. You'd have to have something added to it for it to attach to a cable. Maybe I was joking with John, maybe they had a picnic basket that they handed down and it had the film magazine back in it. It had some bottles of wine and, some French baguettes and maybe a dog named Toto. That's what they were handing down with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Shani. I was just going to tell everyone that for those who weren't listening in last week, that Shannon is an ex-professional photographer, and she, really knows the stuff where photography is concerned. So, I would take her word about this stuff over NASA's all day long.
Same here.
And it's just funny. Thank you. I just was thinking too, why do they have such ridiculous answers for things when it doesn't seem like they need to be that stupid? I mean, are they that stupid? Can they just not keep track of all their lies? Or is it kind of psyop again? Why would, I was just rereading some of John's chapter again from Falsification of History. And he did bring up the question of the stars, which has been a big question, but I have explained that we talked about that last week, why you really couldn't photograph stars in the same image with all that bright sunlight. But the thing is, NASA, instead of explaining it in a technical photographic way, or just in any kind of way that is something that makes sense, John wrote that they said it was because the space suits were so bright that you couldn't, the space suits are so bright that you can't expose the stars in the spacesuits. Why? I mean, it's just so stupid. Why say spacesuits? I mean, the whole scene is too bright. I mean, I don't know. It's like they just have to say these silly things, and I always just wonder why they're saying such stupid things all the time. But like you said, never a straight answer. So
yeah, I mean, they're just lying all the time, and it's so difficult to keep track of their own lies. It's just impossible. So yeah,
maybe that's it.
You need to have a good memory.
Yeah, exactly. And I also read that they brought back 800 pounds of moon rocks from all the missions. And again, they were saying they left that camera there because it was too much extra weight. That little camera, weighed too much, but they had room for hundreds of pounds of moon rocks.
Did I tell you I've got some black moon rock? I got it from the Coleman. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, black moon rock?
Yeah, black moon rock. Yeah, it's very rare apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except in
millions for
it. Sorry, wouldn't the rocks also be radioactive and sort of dangerous because of that? I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be so
yeah,
so radioactive there, but maybe not the rocks. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, I have another thing about the rocks to say. John can talk about this. In fact, I think he has the quote. I want to talk about those meteoroids that that they said. Well, okay. Why don't you read that quote and then we could talk about it. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah,
do you have that?
Yeah. Right. There was a NASA spokesman a few years ago called David Mackay, or David McKay. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name particularly. And he actually said, and I quote, "Meteoroids, i.e. small meteorites, constantly bombard the moon. Apollo moon rocks are peppered with tiny craters from meteoroid impacts. This could only happen on worlds with so little atmosphere, such as the moon. Meteoroids are nearly microscopic specks of space dust that fly through space at speeds often exceeding 50,000 miles per hour, 10 times faster than a speeding bullet. They pack a considerable punch. These tiny space bullets can plow directly into moon rocks, forming miniature and unmistakable craters." As I said, that was a quote from David Mackay, or Mackay, who is a NASA spokesman. So my comment on that is, so then, according to NASA itself, every single piece of moon rock is covered with these minute craters and show evidence of multiple collision from these tiny but deadly missiles. So in effect, again, what NASA's saying is that the moon is not a safe place to be, with a constant hail of these minute 50,000 miles per hour bullets raining down on the surface of the moon. And it would only need one, just one, to penetrate the pressurized suit of an astronaut, and then there would be absolutely no way you'd be making the return trip home again. Fortunately, none of the astronauts on any of the missions, nor the landing modules, nor the moon rovers were ever hit by one of these dangerous, ever-present space bullets.
Head scratcher.
Oh, that'd probably be like a balloon going, and then sort of down.
Yeah,
but
it kind of reminds me that it kind of reminds me of the World Trade Center jet fuel excuse. Somehow I just thought of that. That's why the towers came down. Hey, so of course, again, the photography equipment is not protected. I mean, maybe they have these magical spacesuits, but you just have a camera that's metal, and how is that not getting bombarded with these things? I mean, how's the glass not? I mean, there's so many, but it's also strange. They say that they're tiny, they're nearly microscopic, so you can't even see them. Yet they can form visible marks in rocks. Yet they're basically invisible. So that's a little odd. That doesn't seem to make sense to me, but these are things that basically can penetrate solid objects like more than a bullet can, and there's like so many thousands of them. Yet they went on a really good day, or 3 moon days or whatever, where they didn't have any of that, and all kinds of favorable conditions.
Well, it's easily explainable when you realize that the whole thing from start to finish is just an elaborate fairy tale. So that kind of explains it, really.
Well, when you look at the other hoaxes beforehand, I mean, for example, you had the Bay of Tonkin incident in 1964, which was the Vietnam War, which didn't happen. And you can actually look that up in Encyclopedia Britannica, and it actually says it in the top encyclopedias. There's every possibility allegedly it didn't happen. So really, when you look at this, what they're trying to tell you is that, first of all, they tell you that we've got the laws of physics, and then they're showing you something, i.e. moon landings, that went against the laws of physics. So what are you to believe? The laws of physics or something that goes against the laws of physics? Similar to 9/11 went against the laws of physics. So really, I mean, I'm sorry I had to clicking this picture on and off, but it's the way the system works. But when you look at this picture, to me, that's the best fake you get. It's a good picture, isn't it? Really, it looks like Olladine Bright.
Chris, can you just put it back up again? Just one observation to make. Where are all the tire tracks in the dust?
I see maybe a little bit of some behind it, but I don't know. Not very. No, just once. Yeah, I don't think that's it.
And where's the rocket crater?
Well,
there's underneath the lunar module.
Crater. Right.
No crater there, is there? From
it's all elaborate fakery. I mean, it doesn't even look real to me, that picture. It's too clean, too crisp, too nice. You'd think there'd be some kind of it just doesn't look. It just doesn't feel right to me. All the edges are so clearly defined, and that background is obviously kind of stuck. Or it is the other way around. That image of that moon rover and the lunar module, they're just obviously stuck onto that foreground, that background. Sorry, as a foreground.
Exactly.
It just it looks fake right from the off. I don't think that there's even a question in that. Well, of course, it's not genuine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you could roast a turkey out there because they had the old tin foil around the legs, didn't they?
Yeah.
So if you took a turkey out there, you could cook it free of charge. The old radiation.
Right.
Sorry, I'm a bit sarcastic. Okay.
quite.
Hey, what about plastics? What about plastic? Like they had to have some plastics in all their equipment, right? I mean, it's one thing for metal to withstand the temperatures, potentially, but I mean, come on, plastic. Again, when I lived in Arizona, when temperatures reached 120, only 120, not 250, the recycling bins were melting, warping, and flights were grounded. The airports, we had to close airports on hot days because the tarmac was too sticky. Tarmac's melting. Plastic bins are melting at 120 degrees only.
Yeah.
So.
But but what gets me is that they didn't send any probes, allegedly, down to the moon to find out how thick the dust was there or what the surface was like or anything like that. But before D-Day in 1944, they had miniature submarines going ashore to see if the sand could hold the tanks. So how comes they did tests before D-Day to see whether the sand could hold the tanks? They didn't do tests beforehand, as far as I know, to see whether the place where they're supposed to have landed, which was the Sea of Tranquility, whether it was suitable, whether there might be places where the lunar lander might fall into a crater or something. It all went too well. The only thing, if you went for, I don't know, a day trip to, I don't know, I suppose you went for a trip to Arizona or somewhere you've never been before, you would be ill-equipped with something. You'd find something that, it's a bit like when you first go camping, you take too much with you and you find that you don't need it after stuff you've taken. But you always make that mistake of taking too much stuff. Well, how come they never made any mistakes from 1969 to 1972 by saying, it was all too theatrical, far too theatrical. It really was.
Yeah.
Something that never been done before. It's just...
Yeah.
As always, the kind of... Sorry, Sam, go on.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. I was saying it also, they, I think we talked about this off air, but they somehow, or did we, they brought that antenna with them. They were able to transmit from the moon with some amazing antenna that traveled, could communicate 250,000 miles. Yeah. And, also pack that in the lander as well with whatever battery, whatever thing was powering it. Supposedly they, at least on one of the missions, they left it there with the rover because that's how they got that takeoff shot, is what they say. They used a remote control and they transmitted it and whatnot. But I mean, seriously, like we said, we're having delays right now with our connection on Earth. The fraction of those miles, and somehow back then, in the 60s, they could communicate that far away, and take that equipment with them. I mean, how? It would be enormous. The antennas that would have been enormous. Like, there's no way they could have done that, right?
Well, as I said, for live broadcast between Barnsley in Great Britain and London, which is a couple of 100 miles, they had a fleet of lorries in the 1960s for outside broadcast. Actual fleet of lorries. So how did they get a fleet of lorries to the moon? And how did Richard Nixon get on the phone and say, hi Neil and Buzz, and there's no delay? It sounded so clear as if there was just round the corner, which they probably were. Probably in the next room. I mean, there wasn't any sort of hello, yes, nothing. It's just perfect.
Well, they said there was a little bit of a delay, but that was because of that massive distance. A few seconds, just a few seconds, though.
9 seconds, apparently it is. It could be. That distance, it could be 9 seconds. Yeah. 9
seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Now,
tell me another
one. I think personally, they went into quarantine when they came back. I personally think they went into quarantine for some sort of psychological or kind of hypnotizing or whatever, because that first conference they had, they all looked as if they just sat on a wet seat and they didn't know whether it was the dampness was due to them or Tiddles the cat. They're all sort of all very uncomfortable, and they just come back from the moon, supposedly. Wouldn't you be a bit, wow, yeah, whoa, yeah.
Yeah, there was such a a glum-looking bunch of individuals.
I think they just had it. Well, they probably had COVID, so that's why they had to go into quarantine.
It's probably them that brought it back. Actually, that's the.
They brought it back. Yeah, I'm blaming the astronauts.
Definitely.
I'm worried about the Mickey Mouse variant as well that's coming there, because they've picked on everything else. So Mickey Mouse is next. Was it Donald Duck? Yeah. But anyway, we're going off topic now.
Yeah, we have.
I think we've got quite a few other pictures as well. We've got here. We've got half a dozen. So
who wants
to fly away with
I only had one. I just had one more that I was going to show because I found this. It was pretty funny. That Lockheed Martin. That's number 2, I think.
Number 2.
In your
I'm sorry, I have to
there.
picking them on and off, but they only got a time sequence. So please accept my apology for people saying, keep flicking it on and off. It's driving me up the wall. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, here it comes, number 2. Well, that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to read the title to this article. This was written April 10th, 2019. It says Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor, unveils lunar lander design to get humans to the moon by 2024. So again, it the statement here supposes that we never went, which would be accurate. But so this says the company says it needs resources for it, though. So this, Lockheed Martin, I guess, always low on funds, that one. But but why is a defense contractor trying to get people to the moon? And look at this thing. It looks like a R2-D2. Right? So and the spacesuit is the spacesuit's interesting because it's actually thinner. You'd think they'd figure out that needs to be bigger. I don't know what these little pads are. Those in there. It's anyway. But this is they're saying that they're gonna. Oh yeah. They're gonna create a new space station that NASA wants to build, or just says around the moon. It says a new space station around the moon called the Gateway. So somewhere in the vicinity of the moon, there's going to be something called the Gateway. And so what that means is you can take your space shuttle to the Gateway and then go in that little hoochie mama and then, take that down to the moon. It's simple. Just makes it much easier and more compact because as you can see, he just will barely fit in there. One person, I guess. Yeah, but I found that, I see the scale. There's another person. It's very big. It's supposed to be, I don't know if you can see that. There's a little person at the bottom of it, in the very background, but, so maybe it's much bigger than it appears. Anyway, just the fact that they said that, basically they're saying that it sounds like we haven't been, and they want to make that possible. So.
They do that all the time.
I think. No, seriously, I think it's a diversion for something else.
Yeah.
They always talk as though they've never been before. It's like, as well as actually saying that they've lost the technology now and we can't do it anymore.
Yes. Right.
They actually assume,
reinvent it.
Yeah, so many NASA spokesmen kind of make statements that imply that we've never been before. So it's all a new thing, and we have to develop this,
right?
Especially as regards the shielding for getting through the Van Allen radiation belts. They're always saying, "Well, we need to find a way of doing that," as though they've never done it before. Which, of course, they haven't. But
and it makes you wonder why they haven't come up with the funds because we have trillions now. We just access trillions all the time, for the stimulus bills and everything, because of a virus. But no, they couldn't do this the year before, or they couldn't find any money to do that. I mean, I don't know.
And their best is all created out of thin air, but that's another story for another time.
It's a diversion. That's what I think it is because.
Well, exactly. Right.
So what's going to happen in 2025 to take our minds away from because. As we said last week, the so-called moon landings, same time as the Vietnam War, diversion. So I wonder what this diversion is with, as you say, with R2-D2 there, and trousers that look like something out of German army. sort of, I used to wear. Actually, it does look like a German army, doesn't it? It's just,
Yeah, I think so.
the boots, jack boots, all in white. Oh,
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's lots to cover still, Chris.
okay.
I'm conscious of the fact
We're up to
already...
about an hour, 10 minutes, so I think we can carry on.
Oh my goodness, I've not even covered a quarter I wanted to cover again, but there you go.
As long as we're enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got 44 fresh questions in chat. I don't think we're going to be able to read all them out.
No, I do apologise to everyone, but there's so much information to cover. Can I crack on then? Have you finished, Shannon?
Yeah, I was going to say I could shut my big mouth now. I think I'm about said everything I wanted to.
I didn't say a word.
By the way, Kat just said that spaceship looks like Granny went too far with the tin foil.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to put that one in.
Yeah, okay. I was going to talk a little bit, just another slight diversion from the moon landings, but it's all connected. It's all to do with NASA and space, the final frontier. Yeah, I was going to talk a little about the Challenger shuttle disaster, the alleged Challenger shuttle disaster, which anyone of an age will remember from 1986. And just, hopefully there are people out there that have not come across this information before. I know it's kind of becoming fairly commonplace now, but I just want to say one or two things about that, if I may, because I think this is important. And again, it just demonstrates how NASA deceive us all the time. Okay, so if you could put up picture 6, please, Chris. Right, this, and it's going to go off in a second, but please keep putting it back up when you can, Chris. Right, this is a picture. The black and white background picture are the 7 Challenger astronauts who died in the shuttle disaster. And the little insets are the people, believe it or not, in the present day. Okay, so NASA told us that all 7 of those astronauts died in that disaster, yet 5 of them at least, and probably all 7, but we can't prove that. We can prove the other 5 quite easily, are still alive. And there is the picture. There are the pictures of them as they are today. Now, what on earth is going on there, I hear you ask? Well, let me try and explain what I believe is going on. Right, okay. So just for those who are not aware, just let me backtrack slightly. So on the 28th of January 1986, Challenger, the space shuttle, exploded and broke into millions of pieces. Those of us who are old enough probably saw it live on TV. That was only about 73 seconds into its flight, and allegedly this led to the deaths of the 7 crew members, which included 5 official NASA astronauts and 2 payload specialists. Now, but as I say, did they really die? That picture we've just been looking at is somewhat of a clue. At least, as I say, at least 5 of the 7 are still alive today. And what's more, some of them don't even try to hide that fact. They even use their real names. Governments are infamous for their false flags, cover-ups and hoaxes, as we know, from Roswell to 9/11, etc., etc. So why would this be any different? Why would we not believe this to be a hoax? Because they're very, very good at it. In fact, a simple internet search using the keywords Challenger disaster, astronauts still alive, will prove extremely revealing if anyone wants to discover more about this. Yeah, and as I say, most people don't even attempt to. Most of them don't even attempt to hide their real identities. So, but I mean, there've been lots of theories about what really happened on that day. I mean, for example, we need to know. I doubt we'll ever find out, but we do need to know if there actually was anyone on board in the first place, and if so, were the people who were told was there, and if so, were the survivors? But if, as NASA tells us, there were no survivors, then how does NASA account for the existence of the 5 still alive crew members? Well, as per usual, NASA doesn't account for them at all. It just simply ignores the facts and sticks rigidly to the claim that all 7 stated astronauts died in the explosion. Now, it was reported that the explosion occurred because of a technical issue with the O-rings within the shuttle rocket motor, which caused it to explode and disintegrate. The timing of the deaths of those inside the craft was not known absolutely, allegedly, but some were known to have survived the initial breakup of the shuttle, again, allegedly. And of course, ultimately, NASA was blamed for the incident. But if what I've just said is true, and there were survivors, or indeed there was no crew on board the shuttle at all when it exploded, it begs the question, what would NASA's motivation be for the hoax and subsequent cover-up? Now, I can't prove this, but my pet theory on this is, and again, a lot of you out there will be familiar with this kind of situation because they do it a lot. Now, the event of the launching of the Challenger space shuttle on this particular occasion was a huge event. It was watched live on TV by up to 20 million viewers in the US alone, and in many, many schools across America. Now, I asked Shannon this question ages ago, and she doesn't remember actually seeing it on TV in school, but I have it on good authority that lots of American school children watched this live. And this was mainly due to the presence of a lady called Krista McAuliffe, who was a payload specialist, but she also happened to be a full-time teacher. And so the event was therefore hyped up as a memorable and significant event in space travel. And of course, all the kids, quite rightly, identified with Krista, who was kind of like adopted as their adoptive teacher for the day. Now, it's also a fact that several million US school children were highly traumatized by seeing their hero Krista die live on TV in such a horrific manner. So my question is, and I don't know the answer, but it's just a question I'm going to throw out there. You know, I don't care. I'm just going to throw it out there. So was this a deliberate psyop, or psychological operation, in order to test the public response to something of this nature and to actually monitor the effect on people's psyches, especially those of young children? It sounds too horrific and fantastic for words, I know. Well, maybe, but if it is the case, it wouldn't exactly be a precedent. This kind of operation takes place regularly, unfortunately, and is a tried and tested way for governments to control and manipulate their people by the use of extreme trauma. Yeah, so I don't know if either of you guys have got anything to comment or add to that.
Well, I just had a picture that is linked with possibly this, but what you've just said. I think we better not say any more, but
No.
you know, when you're saying about giving people extreme trauma, fear, terror, yes, it does. You know, because when you look at that, it's all supposed to be high tech, but going back to last week with Gus Griffin. There's a Griffin that was, and those poor souls, you know, those 3 that actually burnt to death.
Yeah.
It was found to be something very simple that surely any so-called scientist would know about. And it's the same with this. It's supposed to have been the O-rings, something very, very simple. Yes, I think you've got a good point there, John. I really do think that, because let's face it, go back a little bit further, and again, I don't want to move too far.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to say War of the Worlds and Orson Welles, aren't you?
Well, not only that, I was going to say, look what happened at the beginning of World War II when they traumatized children by evacuating them, and this was the only country that did that at a time when they needed all the trains they could to move troops around. Yes. Why did they use this strange phony excuse of evacuating children? And they reckoned that the percentage of children that got mental illness from it had terrible psychological effects. Right? Some of them prospered, yes, a minority, but a lot of them, that agony aunt, what was her name now? Claire Rayner. She had a terrible time when she was evacuated as a child, and it was a terrific trauma.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? You need all the transport possible for the military.
Yeah, ripping them away from the parents at such a young age. It was dreadful.
That's right. Really. Causing trauma is something that psychopaths love. So causing that Challenger to blow up, again, psychopaths thrive on trauma.
Yeah, I just wonder if it was some kind of an experiment. You know, what do you think, Shannon? I mean, I know we've discussed it before this, but what do you reckon about it?
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like I should have a more distinct memory of having seen it. I do remember it happening. I do remember talking about it and even talking about it in class. I don't remember if we saw it, if we watched it in class. Okay. Kind of feel like we might have. It's so hazy, but
yeah.
I mean, I do remember feeling a kind of trauma, though. You know, that yeah. I mean, it's a horrifying thing to hear about. And then you kind of lose your faith in, you know, all these experts and government and adults. And, you know, you think, well, and you know, and it's funny because then, of course, we didn't do anything after that, right? It sort of maybe they did it to say, oh, we're having that, we lost too many people. We don't want to try again unless we're extra sure we'll be successful. You know, I don't know. It's like, what was that about? Really, yeah.
The shuttle missions were temporarily paused for quite a while. Right. It might have been a couple of years or more, but they did resume again because this was '86, and I, as I said before, I was at the shuttle launch in '93. So you know, 7 years later.
Going back to the moon landing,
right.
We were talking about Kubrick. Something that is often left out of the equation, isn't it strange? There's two other things. For example, you had Star Trek that started in the mid '60s, and that I believe was a more of a political agenda. It was a psyop, because when you hear how the actors were chosen with the audition. It's not like it wasn't like an ordinary audition. And then you've got 2001: A Space Odyssey, and when you look at the vehicles of that time, you look at especially American vehicles with huge wings at the back, very impractical, most of them. And even in Britain, you know, we had cars that looked very rocket shaped. It was all kind of, to me, a big psyop. How comes 2001: A Space Odyssey came out? I think it was in 67, 68. Just before they're supposed to land on the moon in 1969.
And the story behind that, sorry Chris to interrupt, but the story behind that is that Kubrick was given the license to make that film, which was kind of like it'd been his dream, his goal for many, many years, to make a film of that nature. And he was given free license to make it without oversight, which is totally unique in Hollywood history. They never give directors full oversight. The producers always have a big say in it. He was given full oversight and free reign to make the picture that he wanted to make on condition that he complied and helped fake the moon landing. That's what I believe, and there's so much evidence for that to be the case.
I think he left clues following films.
Also,
I really do.
Go on, Shannon.
Yeah, and he credited in the original film credits. He credited special thanks to NASA and all these people at NASA. Remember, John? And then they subsequently took it out of the credits later on. But why did he have all these special thanks for NASA? Wasn't really explained. And why? I mean, well, the fact that they took it out is more of a red flag to me.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about gematria.
Then that it was in there in the first.
Yeah. There's so much gematria involved around that, and I cover it in my books. I think it's in the history one, not the science one. So I talk about the moon landings in both, but there's different information in both.
Sorry,
I think it's in the
I think our connection's bad right now. Sorry, hold on, John. You might need to stop a minute and say all that again because I couldn't. It was all garbled.
All right. Is that better?
It's still bad.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Better.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's so much gematria, which you were talking about earlier, surrounding all that stuff. Gematria, as Shannon said, it's a kind of numerology which they use as a code to send not subliminal messages, but overt messages to people in the know.
Well,
And there is so much gematria surrounding that event, the 2001 film and the moon landings fakery, and also oh gosh, my brain's gone. Oh gosh, senior moment. No, but it's quite fascinating. All that stuff, and again, I go into some detail about that in one of the books, and I think it is falsification history that I do that in. Talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's linked to the moon landings, and it's fascinating. It really is, quite telling.
We're talking about that Germania, that's numerology type of thing. I was talking about this last Wednesday.
Gematria. Yeah.
Gematria. They're saying that America seems to go around in 80-year cycles. So from the War of Independence to the American Civil War is 80 odd years. And within that time period, you had an enlightening and people going to church and that. Then you had like a kind of similar to a hippie movement. Then you had demoralization, which sounds a little bit like ideological subversion. And then you had a war. And then you go to the, from the American Civil War, you then go forward and you come to World War II. They left World War One out, because America wasn't only involved for about a year or so in World War One. And then we've got 80 years now. Now, you think in the previous 80 years, what have we had? After World War II, you had the 40s, 50s, and early 60s, which was one of the most creative times. Then you had Enlightenment with the hippie movement, that type of thing. Then you got demoralization, and now we've got World War III.
Yes.
And it's an 80-year cycle all the way through. And I think Britain has a sort of 80-year cycle as well. But I'm going off track now, so I'll ease back. I'll put the brakes on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's another topic for another day, maybe.
We've been on an hour and a half. Now, would you like to carry on? Or, I mean, the chat is absolutely going. I've never seen so many.
I'm okay to carry on. Are you, Shannon? Are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You can
go to chat then, Chris.
I think I've kind of said the things I wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got a statement.
To go on with the show, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Go on. Go ahead.
Hang on. What's happening? Everything okay?
Yeah, we're saying we go ahead. Yeah, carry on.
I think the connection is going on. Yeah.
We're both fine. Yeah.
We're good.
Okay. Would you like me to go into chat for a little while, have a little word whilst we gather our thoughts together? Now, a big apologies to everybody. I'm missing a lot out because there are so many in chat. It's impossible for me to read them all out. So a big apology if you haven't read mine out. I'll try and read out the people that we haven't read out before. So we got what we got here. Look for a picture of a chap with glasses.
That's Chris.
Josh Blackburn. Me. Right. Anywhere I'm on my computer. Paul agrees. Fantastic information, guys. John's dedication is simply stunning.
Cheers,
So
Paul.
is Shannon's. So there we go. That's very good, Paul. Very nice. We've got really nice people in chat now.
I spoke to Paul this morning, actually. So,
by the way, I've got an announcement to make. There's a lot of comments in the comment section after the show. Please don't be offended if I can't answer them all. There's loads from our show that we did about Jack the Ripper, and that is one of the most popular shows. There's still questions coming in about that, and also questions coming in this week from last week's show. So please bear with us, and please don't take offense because there's so many that I can't cope with all of them. But it is very welcome, and I do much appreciate them. And some really nice people out there. So here we go. Crater Earth. This is Josh Blackburn. Search on YouTube. Is the moon a reflection of a gigantic Earth on a channel called God Gave? Oh dear. Go Can you read that one? I can't read.
It looks like God gave lamst. I don't know.
God,
No, I've not heard of that one, Josh. Interesting.
Ah,
Yeah,
worth checking out though.
yeah.
Right, and I'm going to have to jump a few here because I do apologise. I've got a few here. This is nice. This is Julian. Must say you guys are amazing and love the show. And Shannon just tops the debate. You two guys, it makes a fab trio. Oh, that's really moving. Thank you very much. Right, again, I'm sorry I can't read everyone out. Oh, we got another one here. What we got here? We got Burn the Heretic. It's interesting. Arguments. Hello, Burn the Heretic. Arguments that the Russians would have said something because of the Cold War myth is nonsense. Correct. Space is a business. The Russians ferry astronauts to the alleged space station for 90 million a pop. Didn't know that.
That's interesting. But he's right. I mean, the whole thing was a collaboration anyway, and it was kind of a mutually convenient arrangement, because I think I said last week that Yuri Gagarin, the Americans knew that Yuri Gagarin never went to space. That's easy to prove, and again, the proof of that is in classification of science, I think. In return for that,
about that in China.
Yeah, the reciprocal deal was that Americans would be able to be first on the moon, and also in return for about 30 million tons of grain, which they exported to Russia as well, which kind of reared its head as well in my research. So
what to do with the old money? As Kat Holsworth, hello, Kat. All about black ops and ripping off the public. She's just summed it up in one sentence. That sums it up perfect. And then we got Phil Howard. I was amazed at how quiet the story was regarding China going to the dark side of the moon. Did Pink Floyd do that? You would have thought that that would have got a lot more hype considering the time gap since the last time we went.
Yeah, interesting point. But I guess they don't want to create a situation, and this is just my speculation, but I guess they don't want to create a situation where they're going to have to answer awkward questions about the dark side of the moon.
That's right.
I guess,
and Kat has said, well, agreed, this is regarding the shuttle, the Challenger shuttle disaster. Was it 86, wasn't it? 89?
January 86.
Yes. Well, agreed, they never died because they didn't go anywhere. Laugh out loud. That's Kat. That's quite a good point. And then we've got here, which is Pete. Evan Padama, I think ultimately it is about controlling the perception of the population. Control perception is a very good point, this, Pete. Yeah. Control reality. Also, it does tend to make millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. Yes. And it says, Louise says, I'm surprised NASA hasn't lost the photos of the crew. And then we've got mass hypnosis here. Mass hypnosis is massive worldwide trauma, possibly some kind of energy harvesting. These bastards are possessed with evil. That is a subject. You've got a very good subject there that I've been into, because we're going into psychopaths, and we can do an incredible show on that. And it's something I've actually been writing about, and I've had quite a lot of experiences with them. I've worked with them. One married into my family, I believe. Anyway, we've got Ninja Man here. We've got here. Ninja Man, 1982, the war on drugs. 19 years later, 19 supposed hijackers, and 9/11, the war on terror. 19 years later, you know what, I won't read it out. No coincidence, it's the 19-year moon suck. Do you know something, Ninja Man? You got a bloody good thing. It really made me thought. 19-year cycle. Now that is interesting, because I'm very interested in numerology. 1982, the war on drugs.
Can I chime in there?
Yeah, sure.
Chris, can I chime in there and say that? That actually, there's somebody named. Somebody named Nathan. Look up Nathan Hubbard. I mean, sorry, not Nathan. Zachary Hubbard and his work. I think it's Gematria News Effect or Gematria Effect News. Zachary Hubbard has a really good book out, which the title I probably can't say without censorship. Well, it's called Numbers Game, but Numbers Games or Number Games, and then it has something else in the title. But he has a good website, and he speaks about the 19-year cycle, 2001 and this past year, between two very big events. But that's definitely something in use. Let's just say that 19-year cycle is important to in terms of big events. Yeah.
Ooh, I look about this. Cat Holsworth has hit the nail on the head. What about the song and the 19 from a few years back? And then we got Chris Lucas. Hello, Chris. Sorry, mate, I haven't read your things out tonight. Nothing personal, just so many. I think that's pretty interesting about the 19s that Ninja Man brought up. Yeah, I do as well. That is really interesting. That's really made me think. Because, as you know, again, I'm going slightly off track here, that World War II was all surrounding 3, 6, and 9. Think about it. 3, 6, 9. I won't say any more because you soon get into that in the book, because my dad was into numerology.
Yeah.
But what year did Mr. H come to power? 1933. When did World War II start? 1939. What time? 3rd of September.
3rd of the 9th. Yeah.
Although America is 1941, but it's a different. But with the English side, 1945 it ended. 9, But we've got Ninja Man's come up again. He said the moon is in the same spot every 9. Hang on. Ninja Man, thank you. This is brilliant. The moon is in the same spot every 19 years. The Jesuits run the planet. Gematria Effects News 22 on YT.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. That's Zachary Hubbard's I was mentioning.
Chris Lucas said something about it.
Yeah, there he is.
He's a friend with a lot of my crowd. Johnny Kukri, Eric 777.
Yeah, I was on Johnny Shiruki's podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'm on again on Sunday, I think. Friday, I think. Sorry. Yeah.
That's interesting. Right. Do you think we should wrap it up now? And
I mean, I've just got
even scratched the surface, have we?
I don't know. Have you got anything else to add, Chani? I've got a closing statement to make. Just like the council for prosecution.
I do.
Go on.
Yeah,
go ahead.
just that. I do have something. I forgot to mention. So atmospheric effects and lighting. I was thinking about. So we're on Earth with our atmosphere. At anything at a great distance goes kind of hazy and low contrast, and you start to lose the color. And I'm wondering. So even when you get into an airplane and you're up at however many thousand feet, and you're looking down, that's the closest we can get, to viewing the Earth from above. And everybody's probably noticed this, but it gets hazy. The colors fade. And then, of course, you go above the clouds, and you don't see anything. So I'm curious as these NASA suppose that they're photographs of the Earth and the Earth, from the moon that are like so sharp, with clear colors, rich colors, sharp detail. Would not like the atmosphere interfere with that ability to see the detail from so far away? Just a question.
You've got a good point. And also the lens.
I don't know if anybody has an answer.
No, I know what you're saying, Shannon. You're absolutely right, of course. But no, I can't really answer it. But it's an interesting phenomenon, of course. And
that is interesting. I've used massive telephoto lenses, and when you look at the shot, it's never that crisp.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem.
Right, and then you have that issue too of the lens. Yeah.
Too clear.
I'm even just talking about. Well, I'll say I will say, John, I saw there was a comment about this. It can be that clear. I mean, given the equipment they use, the Hasselblad and a 70 millimeter, and the low ASA rated film in bright sunlight, you can get very sharp images. So that's not the problem for me. The problem is other things with the lighting. Yeah, but I mean, it could be that clear. It's in it because we're coming at this from today's technology, which actually is not as good as what we could get with professional film cameras back in the day. So that's still kind of catching up, and we've all kind of grown accustomed to seeing digital images now, which don't have that same sharpness and resolution. So I think that's part of it. But again, but even just in terms of in terms of atmosphere, thank you. You can't see at distances without it becoming hazy because of the effect of atmosphere. So again, how do you take a picture of the Earth from a distance, like space, looking through this big layer of atmosphere? I don't know. It doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And of course, John's shown that these photos are different. The size of the continents are different in the NASA images from years apart. I mean, I've heard one person explain to me that the continent difference in size could be that depending on what angle the Earth's rotation was at the time. But I still don't think that accounts for the discrepancy. It's too much. It's a very large discrepancy. Yeah.
Well, in falsification of science, that what you're referring to there, Shannon, is that I actually I present two photographs side by side. One shows the continent of North America, and it takes up the whole of the globe, the whole of the circle that you can see. And the one next to it, America is about a third or a quarter of the size on the next one. So they're obviously elaborate. Well, they're not even that elaborate, to be fair. It's obviously fakery. And the other thing is that they're absolutely perfect circles. Now, don't they tell us that the Earth is an oblate spheroid? In other words, slightly pear-shaped, larger at the bottom than the top. Yeah, I mean, so those pictures look as though someone's taken a pair of compasses and drawn a precise circle and then coloured it in with all the continents. That's what it's like. It's perfect, the circle.
Correct.
There was
not
YouTube.
Real,
yes.
Yeah.
There was a YouTube which I think has been taken down now. There's a chap who claimed to have been a NASA artist, and he said all these so-called photographs of Saturn and wherever you want to go, he said they're done by artists.
Yeah, sure.
Because I mean, I remember when I was a kid, saw the so-called moon landings. That simulation, the simulation. We go to see it. No, it wasn't CNN in those days, was it? It was somebody else. I can't remember. But we go over to America now for their simulation. And the simulations were better than what you saw was supposed to be on the moon, And you couldn't tell the difference sometimes, You see actors in the studio and that. And we had James Burke and Bog Eye, telling us exactly what was going on, But quite honestly, I think we could do a year's worth of programs on this. And
I mean, I've not covered everything that I wanted to. Yeah, sorry.
But we've got to. I mean, do you want to wind this up now? I think we've been on for almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, I mean, I've just got a couple of sentences to say at the end.
Certainly. Please,
do you want to go? Are you doing any more comments, Chris, or do you just want me to launch?
I mean, there's so many, I can't read them all out.
All right.
And I do apologise to people.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, but that's kind of one of the penalties of becoming more popular, isn't it? I guess that's
right.
Yeah.
And somebody said here, this is Charlotte says, please don't stress about reading out comments. This is an excellent show with really nice people in comments section. Couldn't agree more. That's great. Thanks, Pete. So I don't feel so bad now. So please, sorry, it's over to you, John.
Yeah. Are you okay, Shannon? Have you finished now?
You know how I am. I'll never be finished. But,
well, I've experienced this at first hand.
But I will refrain from further comments if that helps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just let me round it off then. And I think what I'd like to say to end all this now is that it's really interesting to know that although it's not widely recognized today, even at the time of the moon landings, the original moon landings back in the late 60s, early 70s, there were a significant number of people who were more than skeptical about NASA's television productions of the events. Wired magazine reported that night newspapers polled 1,721 US residents 1 year after the first moon landing and found that more than 30% of them were suspicious of NASA's trips to the moon. And to me, this is highly significant in itself, given that the overall trust in governments in those days was considerably higher than it is today. More people were kind of accepting of the information that they were told via the media that came from governments and governmental organizations such as NASA. So the fact that nearly a third of Americans doubted what they were witnessing through their television sets is quite remarkable to me. But of course, without the benefits of the internet, it was much more difficult to share that information in those days, especially contentious information, which would be filtered today by the control media. Real information and statistics were thus not as widely distributed as today. And I just wanted to round off with that because I think that is quite significant. And that is, I think there are actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are more people today, it's more than 30% that don't believe that we went to the moon. But the fact that there was 30% even at the time, I found quite staggering and interesting.
That's it, very interesting. But years ago, I don't know if you remember this, John, you used to have a lot of religious people around doors. It wasn't only Jehovah's Witnesses and people like that. It was all kinds of people. And there was this chap called himself, I don't know, Reverend or something. And I didn't witness it myself, but my dad told me that when they first started putting Sputnik in space, he said, they'll never get up into space. It's all a hoax. And that must have been...
Your dad said that?
My dad said that about a religious chap that knocks on the door and he spoke to these people. And this religious chap, I don't know quite what church he was representing or anything, but he said they won't even get anywhere into space. And that was when Sputnik was around. Yeah. So, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredible show thanks to John and Shannon. I can't thank you enough because you're really making the show. And most of all is our audience, who are absolutely fantastic, and the people in chat, and the people that do the comments. And again, I'll keep on about. I'd love to read all out, but we're getting so many now. I can't read them all out. And with comments, I'll try and answer them. But well, I think we've got another show coming up, haven't we?
Thank you.
Probably.
Yes. So if you'd like to join us next week, 8 o'clock UK time, I think it's an earlier time in the United States. Sorry? Just slightly.
I said just a little.
So it's be the same time. Also, please go on to John's site, which is, I found it, which is falsificationofhistory.co.uk.
Yeah.
And you can email him on this email. Okay, this has come up here. You'll also find the details below this after the show, and also other details. So it just leaves me to say I'll be on Facebook Live on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. We're going to talk to Caroline Stevens about Mrs. Mary Whitehouse.
Interesting.
Bully Graham, bully, and and join us again next week for another exciting show. Have you anything to say, Shannon?
Well, I don't know. The things I want to talk about, I don't know if we can talk about them for another show. That's the problem. That's the yes.
I think that's for a discussion off air.
And anything, so we sort of round it off.
Well, I'd just like to say, are you talking to Shannon? Sorry, or me?
Yourself, John.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone who's watching there. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the comments. And just to reiterate what Chris said, really sorry that we couldn't read them all out. I mean, it's just been immense, the amount of interest and the amount of comments. And I thank you all for them. There's some really, really interesting stuff in there. For those of you who can't see, but I can actually see well, we all can, all three of us can see the comments scrolling up on the right-hand side of the screen. So even though they're not being read out, we've all read them. So, I just wanted to make that point. And thank you once again.
And remember,
and you all can't see it, but I'm smiling. Just wanted to let you know I'm smiling.
Yeah.
And saying thanks.
Yeah. I'd just say the reason, I think we should explain maybe the reason why Shannon doesn't appear on video is because where she lives, she uses satellite internet and the bandwidth is very, very small indeed. So she can't actually sustain a video picture. It's not that she doesn't want you to see it.
Well, thank you very much.
I am hideously ugly as well.
She's lying. I'll tell
I'm
you.
deformed.
She's lying through her back teeth.
We do a nice impersonation there of Neil Armstrong, I think, in that. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for everybody for making the show what it is.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks everybody. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Shannon.
Have a laugh. Always remember that. And always share a smile. So we'll see you same time, same place next week. And good night.
Good night.